So there are a number of videos on my account that are short status updates, there are some videos that are there in kind of error, like the arms go ah version of the Shockwave video, and then there are a bunch of shorts that I really do want to get back to at some point, but I just don't have the energy to do so at this time. But if you are counting fully produced, actual PerspectiveEnd videos, this is the 365th on my channel. That means that from this point forward, you could watch a different PerspectiveEnd video, be it a toy review, show review, what's the best, a fixing the WFC, Transformers power levels, looking forward, a full-sized show roast, or yet more. And boy, it wasn't until I laid all that out that I realized that I have a wider variety of content than I thought. Anyways, be it any of that, you can watch one real, fully produced, non-short PerspectiveEnd video every single day for a straight year without ever watching the same thing twice. That's a weirdly big milestone. Anyways, I finally got Dragon Megatron. It took forever for it to finally come off pre-order because I couldn't find one in any of the stores I went to, no matter how much gas I spent. And then when this finally showed up, I went to the store that day, and there was one of these on the shelf. Why is it always like this? I want to kill something. Just strangle it till the life drains from its eyes. In my mind, it's whoever's in charge of distribution at Hasbro. Anyways, oh thank God, it's good. It's so good. It's Transmetal 2 Megatron. You know, I was kind of crapping my pants like I had dysentery for so long. I mean, Wave 3 of Legacy QC has been almost universally terrible. Except for the Beast Wars figures. Apparently whoever's in charge of QC at Hasbro has taste. Maybe that's the reason everything else sucked, because they were literally only paying attention to the Beast Wars figures, because both this and Inferno are immaculate on that front. That figure, and this one especially, feel so nice. Not a loose joint, not a flaw in the plastic, not a tool mark on it, not a missed splotch of paint anywhere. It's fucking beautiful, man. They did me proud, and I want to weep in relief. Just on the QC front alone, I want to weep. But it's not only the QC, because this thing is just so good it hurts. Oh my God, is it good. However, you may notice that there's a tab missing here. When I was writing this script, I put the figure into beast mode to collect my thoughts on it. After I was done, I went to transform it back, only to find that the wrist tab was stuck. In trying to get the tab back out, it just sheared off. So that part is excessively fragile, but not a vital component. So this isn't a big loss. It just makes lining up part of the transformation slightly easier. So it doesn't really taint this beautiful thing too much. Anyways, for starters, it's just big. This thing is huge by modern leader standards. Bigger than the Kingdom Megatron, which is probably the closest thing we've gotten in mainline to classic leader scale in years. Almost as big as the 86 Dinobots. This is enormous. And I know it's kind of hilarious to say that considering how much third party I buy, as almost everything 3P is bigger, but like somehow I'm able to perfectly keep the relative scales straight in my head. So yeah, it's small when sat next to MP stuff, but it still feels huge to me because of what it should be compared to. And ultimately to most of you who only buy Chug as it is, this will be one of the biggest figures you own outside of Commander class. And I'll say that I'm happier with this than most Commanders. Don't look at the face, we're not talking about that yet. So it's big, but it's also sculpted to high heaven. I mean, every inch of this is bathed in rich detail that makes a grown man cry. And furry's hard enough to cut diamonds. This also has like the biggest feet ever on any Transformer, so it's nearly impossible to knock him over. You could drop this into a standing position and not have any worries. So that's also something that would please the furries, methinks. And the classic Transmetal 2 gimmick is represented here to a degree I never thought possible in the modern age. For those who weren't around at the time, or who just never picked up on it, I know I didn't until it was explained to me like 6 or so years ago in a YouTube video, the main gimmick with Transmetal 2s is that unlike Transmetal 1s, who were organic-looking robot modes with robotic beast modes, the Transmetal 2s were a fusion of the two styles in both modes, with the catch being that their designs became asymmetrical because of it. And while the torso isn't playing that game, you can see all the limbs have really given into it. Aside from the obvious one arm is an arm and the other arm is a dragon situation, it's most present actually in the legs, where one kneecap looks like a turtle's ass, the other one looks like a piece of armor, while its sub-kneecap has a claw on it, and the other side has some techno-greeble, with unique sculpted details throughout. Now the wings seem to be the same molding, which is sad because on the original figure they weren't, but they still went to town here, with the painted fade going into the translucent plastic. And honestly, the deco is kind of great overall. Before we ever got pictures of this, back when all we had to go off was text leaks of the figure, I was really worried that this would be chromed as it's supposed to be, since I'd heard that Hasbro had long since gotten rid of all the equipment they used to chrome a figure. Sadly, that turned out to be true. Well, I say sadly, I mean, you know me, shiny think good, but weirdly enough, I find myself not missing it all that much. Would my stupid lizard brain like it more if it was shiny? Probably, but I find myself still liking the deco plenty already. Like, I really didn't notice it being gone, especially with the faded purple being handled so well. I cannot stress this enough. This is a gorgeous effigy to the Mad Tyrant, and it's just yet another instance of the Predacons getting all the best figures in the Beast Wars revival. Like, it's not even fair. Who do the Maximals even have? Dinobot? Kind of. Primal? Not really. Tigatron-ish? Who do the Preds have? Black Arachnia, T-Rex Megatron, Waspinator, Ravage, Tarantulas, Inferno, and now TM2 Megatron? It's just not close. The worst of the Preds is on par with the best of the Maximals. As for the head, well, you can't win them all, I guess. I don't know why you would choose to do this. When literally every other of the new Beast Wars figures has a show-accurate head, why would you choose to make the final version of Megatron with a toy-accurate head? It makes no sense. No one asked for this, no one wants it. I had the original toy, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, toy loyalty is fucking stupid. If I want to own a toy like one from 20 years ago, then I want a reissue. A new toy with similar features to an old one is never going to scratch that itch. And if I'm buying a modern figure, then I'm doing that because I want a modern figure, and not because I want something from decades in the past. I rave all that like a psychopath while not actually being all that unhappy with this, because it's not that far off. The original toy had a head based on the show, it was just given an ugly shark's tooth expression because it was the 90s and bad taste was cool at the time. So it does still look like the character, it's just got teeth that belong on Dinobot and an expression that's not unlike other expressions he made in the show. So it's mostly fine, it's just a little silly. And it makes you understand why from the moment this was leaked, people were announcing upgrade kits that swapped out the head. So yeah, the look of this thing is awesome. It's so good. It's just everything I could reasonably have hoped for. Sure, it's not chrome, but we knew enough not to expect that. It's big, it looks great, it's painted well, it feels quality like stuff hasn't felt all year, it's sculpted like no one's business. The only real negative I have to say is that he's got this big ugly pec section hanging off of his ass. And as for accessories, is it really any surprise? He only comes with one thing, and it's a fire effect off an older figure. It pegs into the dragon mouth just fine, and it goes into his singular hand for a silly little fire sword. At least he can wield it right. So outside of a stupid wig for a joke, or a book recorder thing, a blast effect is really all I could have asked for. And honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if it got nothing at all. So I'm cool with the singular accessory. It's plenty for me to say that this does enhance the figure a little. Now posability is weird. This may be the weirdest figure I've ever covered. Though like, look at it. Of course it is. Head only swivels, but you can fake a lot of tilt down by untabbing the backpack, though it's a bitch to get it tabbed back in properly. And honestly, that's my biggest complaint with this figure. The fact that tabbing the head in and having it stay tabbed in is a pain. And the tentacle coming out of the back of it is ball jointed at each segment, except for the first one attaching it to the head, where it just swivels up and down. The pincher bug claw on the end does not have individual fingers. Sadly, it's static. The tops of the wings have these little thumb things that you can twiddle, wings flap backwards, and each have 5 membrane pieces that are individually posable, though every one of them has a different maximum amount of splay outwards. It's nice that they kind of open automatically if you pull on the last segment though. Right arm pulls less than a 90 out, left arm pulls significantly more than a 90. Maximum right elbow. Left elbow that bends like 20 degrees, 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 and left elbow that bends like 20 degrees. Altogether, I think that these could stand to bend a little more at each segment, since this is kind of their ultimate range. Right side sword-wielding wrist, no swivel, dragon wrist swivel, mouth opens and closes, though not as much as I want it to, ratcheted waist, weird, hips are completely unimpeded forward, super unimpeded out to the side, and unimpeded back if you move the backpack out of the way, though that kind of untabs the head, pain. Extreme knees that bend almost maximum. Mafia shins, and feet with a huge tilt up, a huge tilt down, and a sideways rocker that goes both ways. So yeah, this is some insane posability, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, it is good, great even, but this thing has joints no other figure has for good reason. They only make sense on him. Like I said, I want a little more in the dragon arm, as it's not snake-like enough. But what's here is excellent, and you can get him into almost every pose that you could possibly want, while having it work in tandem with the sculpt and paint to look awesome. It's honestly harder to get this guy to look lame than it is to look cool. Borderline impossible even. Transformation is really good. I love the way the dragon arms work where they form part of the chest. That's so inventive and fun. He's got Kingdom Megatron's crotch, which is funny to see pop up twice on the same character, but there are a few things that I much don't care for. The way the two robot mode arms kind of sync up to form the dragon neck is a little lopsided, and the transformation has this one weird step in it that's so unclear, I had to read the instructions to figure it out after 30 minutes of just not being able to get it. And while writing this script, I had to look it up again. At this point, I just need to remind myself from now on that Megatron winds up with his head looking up his dragon butt. And I really appreciate how the new dragon chest fuses with the robot chest. It's a cool transformation, but man, that one step is weird. And I wish the ass pegged in a little better. But then you end up with this absolute glorious display fucking hog. Somehow going into beast mode, this gets significantly bigger. This is like the Planet X Deathsaurus of Chug, and it looks so damn cool. If I had criticisms, I'd once again say that this base part of his neck is pretty hideous, these knee gaps are really ugly, and he looks a bit tubby. But everything else is just so close to perfection. Even his rectal cavity, where it turns out Megatron had some light piping that they painted over, which was the correct decision, doesn't even look that bad despite its nature of being a gap. There's enough going on here that it looks relatively complete the way it is. And his digitigrade shins look really sick. Plus, he's got the same stompers as ever, so they do manage to keep all that under control. And you know what? This is missing its front teeth like a lot of the Dino characters have been. But the funny thing is that that's actually accurate to the way the character looked in the show. He just didn't have those teeth. All that is to say is that this looks almost perfect in its beast mode. It's boasting a level of accuracy almost unheard of, and it's glorious. I know that they couldn't make this look like the real thing, finger quotes, since there is no real thing for this to be based on, but damn it, what was so hard about getting this? This looks exactly like it's supposed to, and it makes my heart sing, and I've not seen a single person try to complain that this looks like a bad CGI model or anything. It just looks like the thing it should be, and everyone's happy, and no one is thinking to complain because no one was ever going to complain about the other guys too. I swear the one thing that really irritates me about this fandom is that every time Hasbro makes a bad decision, people line up to try and come up with reasons as to why it was the correct one to defend the $6 billion company. Well, here's proof that the Beast Wars CGI models could have looked awesome in plastic. They would have made everyone happy, and that all that stuff about how they needed to be changed just wasn't true. What's funny is that this actually poses better in some areas than the robot mode. Dragon Head works the same as the arm used to, wings have a little more freedom, he's got 2 identical normal arms now with less than 90 out to the side, maximum elbows, wrist swiv, and hands that have sword-wielding wrists despite no ability to hold a sword. And aside from losing his waist, the lower body is as good as ever, except it gains an extra set of knees. And his tail works pretty much just as well as the neck. So look, this thing is amazing, immaculate. It is one of, if not the absolute best of the new Beast Wars figures. It's one of the best figures to come out in years. The robot mode looks near perfect. It's exactly what it should be, with the single exception of the head. The posability is well above average, being basically made of specialty joints, though that was kind of necessary given the design. The accessory is minor, but it still helps. The transformation, with the exception of one notably weird part that's hard to keep straight in your head or into it, is really fun. And the beast mode is just a radiant thing that would make the character proud. A divine beast befitting the legend. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense that he's something of an Asian dragon, even if it's an H.R. Geiger Asian dragon. This is the kind of figure that the term micro masterpiece was invented to describe. Honestly, micro masterpiece isn't even good enough for this thing. It's excellent, I love it, you'll love it, buy it if you get the opportunity. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.